Hello YouTube, Ninja Midget here. I got my 1911 apart. I just recently acquired this. Did a video on assembling the barrel, so I'm not going to bother going over that again. I got that right here. But I want to go and cover some things on assembling the frame as well as fitting parts. I do have several parts that I got. One of them being my magazine release. I got an aluminum trigger, and I got a beaver tail backstrap. This is from Wilson Combat, this beaver tail backstrap. And then the trigger and the magazine release are both from Brownells, and they're the Para-Ordnance ones. They're supposed to be, you know, just the drop-in sort of thing, which if you've been working on guns for any length of time, you know, drop-in doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work, and often it just, you know, you have to end up working on it anyway. But that's kind of what I like about working on guns and stuff, is you got to do, you know, some work to make things fit. So first thing, I did go and polish my the barrel lug there. It's already showing a little bit of wear, but last video you could see some of the machine marks on that, and it was really kind of crappy looking a lot better. I'll probably go over it again every once in a while just to make it look shiny and neat. But one of the things that I ran into with this gun was I was having some feeding problems with my dummy rounds. And what was happening is some of the rounds would get up to this point right here and they'd hang right there. They would just hang right there. Now it's well past this lip of the round being on this lip here, which is where a lot of your feed problems happen, going in just like that. But it looks like what also was happening was there was some friction that was being created up on top here. It was blued. Let me get this under the camera right. Trying to do this as well as be able to see is kind of a pain in the butt. But I think what's happening was some of the bluing in there was making the round stick a little bit. So I did two things to remedy this. First of all, I already have my polishing stone out. Polishing stone, I took and rounded off this lip in here. That lip right there. There, if you feel that, with most of your store-bought, you know, not created by, you know, some super awesome gunsmith, these are just machined out. There's usually machine marks on the feed ramp, and this is, it's got a sharp edge on it inside that feed ramp as it goes to the barrel. So what you want to do is you want to take one of your polishing stones, and you want to just break that. You don't want to use sandpaper or anything. You don't want to remove material, but you want to just go over that real good, break that edge so that there's not that sharp edge there as you're trying to feed rounds in. The other thing I did over on this side here is I took some 320 grit sandpaper and wrapped it around my polishing stone, and I lapped the inside of the chamber on the top and polished that up good. Went 320, then 600, and then I hit it with some of the Flitz polishing compound. And since then I have not had any feeding problems when this is in the gun. And these dummy rounds are pretty beat up. You can tell I've been using them, cycling through the action, so they're pretty beat up. You know, and that kind of replicates what you'd get, you know, with some of your rounds that have been, you know, fired brass or whatever. You may get imperfections. You want those to be able to feed. So that seems to have solved that problem. One of the reasons that I got this gun, and I wanted to go ahead and give these a try after I got rid of my, I had one of the Turkish Gursans, and yeah, it had some feeding problems, and it had the back strap that was bent down into your hand, and it just left the webbing between my thumb and my index finger bloody after I shot it the first time. So I never shot it again with the, you know, feeding ramp problems and all that stuff, feeding problems. So I got rid of it, but I really like the old 1911s. I think it's an awesome design, you know, with its flaws and everything, and I decided, What I wanted to do was get one of the, entry level $400-600 guns, 1911, and see if I could do everything I could possible with my limited knowledge and experience to make this as reliable a gun as I can. So that's what I'm trying to do here with just troubleshooting some of these things. And that seems to have helped. Of course, a big difference between, cycling these dummy rounds through and when you're actually, out at the range and firing full 45, loads through here. So I'll see how that feeds, and if I run into any problems, I'll see if I can address it from there. So that's that. Now the trigger, it's supposed to be just a drop-in type thing, but as everyone knows, that just doesn't usually work out. So it was getting stuck inside the gun. I'd put it in, and it would go up to about there, and it would start binding. Let me see what, I'd go right about there and start binding. And I couldn't tell which side it was binding on, so what I did was I wrapped some 320 grit sandpaper around a 1x1 square length of pine, and just used that as a flat surface for lapping off these sides, the two sides, and on the ends. And what I did was I would take some off, not a lot. When it comes to doing things like this, you want to make sure that you're not taking off a lot of material, because you can't put it back on. You can screw up a lot of gun parts by doing that. So take it off, refit it, put it back in, and see where some of the marks are showing. When I got it to the point where it would slide in, just with just the tiniest amount of friction, that's when I got out my trusty Sharpie, started coloring the thing, so that I could see if it was a particular side, like the bottom needed a little bit more taken off. It was rubbing when the top already had clearance, and there was one side of the trigger that was rubbing on the frame more than the other. So you kind of adjust that in until you get it to the point where it's feeding in with no resistance, or just the tiniest bit of resistance, and that's going to give you a nice clean trigger, not a lot of wobble in it. It's free in there, and it looks good. I like the silver accents on these black guns. So that's that. There also was one other adjustment I had to make on this, and that is that this bump right here, the bump on the top, this is where your backstrap safety hooks in. And it's down here. Your trigger is not going to go back. Let me get this more on camera. It's back here. Your trigger is not going to go back. When it goes up, your trigger can suddenly go back that extra 1/8 of an inch and fire the gun. This, when it rotated, it was just slightly hitting here, just barely hitting there. I could feel it. It would still go, but didn't want that. So it was like 1/1000th that needed to come off this. So I very carefully with the Dremel just took off a little tiny bit, polished it up with some 600 grit sandpaper. I didn't bother hitting it with flits because I just didn't see the need, and that took care of the problem. That was the adjustment that needed to be made on this. Now, on the magazine, stainless, and it's got the button on it. Probably have it laying somewhere around here, but there it is. It's got your little larger thumb button that screws right in there. And the thing I do is I make sure I put some Loctite on the end of this before I screw it in, so it's not walking out on me. But then, okay, so let's see. This goes in your gun like this, rides like that. Let me get my hands out of the way here. Goes up, locks in. There's your contact point right there on this edge. Let me get something to point with. This edge right here, this is your contact point. Now the problem I was having with this mag release was that there was a lot of extra material on this, and right here. There was a lot of extra material there. And I looked on my original, and it's this nice little crescent here, and there was not a lot of material on there. So I just took my Dremel with the grinder on it again and ground this off until I could release my magazine without it catching, because what was happening is it would function properly, go down here and it would seat, but then when this underspring tension started sliding down, it was still riding on this part of the magazine, and it just wasn't letting it fall out of the gun, you know, like it should. So taking that off there, polishing it a little bit, helped. One other note on this is you want to make sure that you have a positive surface here. Let me see if that'll focus in on me. There it is. You want it to be, let me see if I can get a good angle on this. You want it to be like this, not like that. You want this surface to get a good bite on it so that when you release, pops down. You don't want that the other way, because then you could get this, you know, slipping if the button is pressed, you know, accidentally just a little bit. Could cause it to slip. So you want to make sure that your connecting surface there is a good positive angle, so that when you push the button, that releases. If the button gets tapped, it's not going to just release when you don't want it to. So that's that. The two drop-in parts that I had needed work. You know, no big deal. I like working on guns, but just kind of funny to think that those, and this is, you know, from Wilson Combat, this didn't require anything on it. No work whatsoever. Drop it in and go, and you're good. So just, you know, if you're getting parts for a gun, you're not comfortable doing this stuff, you're not interested in it, not everybody wants to do this kind of thing. I think it's kind of fun, but not everybody does. So, you know, if you're not comfortable doing this, take it to a gunsmith and he'll make sure your gun's in good order.